Coming to you, not live, from a suburb that is probably pretty far, this is the Movie Nerd Podcast, the show where myself, Dominic Rizzi, aka Movie Nerd, as well as my co-host, Chris Evanko, will continue to talk about movies, TV, and just life in general. And now here are the hosts, myself, Dominic Rizzi, aka the Movie Nerd, and Christian Evanko. This is the Movie Nerd Podcast. Chris, how you been, man?
Good, Dom. How about you?
I've been pretty good. I'm glad that we're back after a little bit of a hiatus. We're going to be back trying to do this podcast regularly. But
fairly consistently.
Oh yeah, fairly consistently. But the center of this podcast is because there was a show that premiered last Wednesday now, about a week ago, and I really enjoyed it. I don't know if you did, but we're here to discuss it. Chris, what show was that?
I believe, and I could get this wrong, but I believe that show would be Legion.
That would be correct. That would be Legion, the brand new show on FX that debuted last Wednesday. It is created by Noah Hawley, who also created the FX anthology TV series Fargo, which I absolutely love. So this series is about David Haller. He's played by Dan Stevens, who was in the first 3 seasons of Downton Abbey. He played Cousin Matthew, for any of you Downton Abbey fans out there. He's locked up in this mental hospital in the first episode because he is a schizophrenic, or he thinks so. He hears voices in his head consistently. Little does he know, though, that this is because he's not a schizophrenic. He's actually a mutant. In the comics, the character of David Haller, a.k.a. Legion, is actually the son of Professor X. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah,
and the reason why he's locked up in this hospital is because...
Professor X and who else?
It's been different in multiple comic versions. I think in the Ultimate line, it was Emma Frost, although in a couple of other lines, it's been different. Like, there was one line where it was Moira McTaggart. There was another line where...
Okay.
Professor X has been quite a player.
He's the son of 2 gifted people.
Very 2 gifted people.
And
the Legion's thing,
history.
yeah, and the Legion's thing is that the reason why he's always been locked up in this hospital is because he is so friggin' powerful. Like, he's basically like the Phoenix on steroids. They just can't control him. Because remember how in X3, the movie, the reason why Charles put those mental blocks on Jean's mind was because she was so powerful, she just wouldn't be able to control her powers otherwise. That's similar to what happened here, only it's the fact that David doesn't know he's a mutant. Also, they're not... 20th Century Fox is not entirely sure about how they're going to integrate this TV show into the X-Men film universe, whether they're going to do it at all, if they're going to do it the way the Netflix series does with the Marvel Cinematic Universe in terms of just throwing out subtle hints here and there. But we're not here to talk about, like, the continuity. We'll talk about that a little later. For now, we're just going to talk about the episode in general. We're going to give our thoughts first. We're going to stick to a primarily non-spoiler review. So later on, once we're done with our non-spoiler review of the pilot, we will let you guys know, because we're going to dive into some heavy spoilers about what's to come. So, Chris, first off, what did you think of the pilot episode of Legion?
I thought it was really good. I think that for a pilot, it gripped me. But I also would be upset. And this is a bit of spoiler thing, so all I'm going to say is, and remind me to elaborate on this when we get into the later half of this podcast, but personally, I would be upset if certain motifs that were used in this pilot continued throughout the show, because I feel that it was a great pilot in the sense that it grips you in and you want to see what happens next week, but I don't think I got enough character development, and I think that a lot of the camera, I'm not going to say tricks, because this was very well shot from a cinematographer's standpoint, but the motifs, rather, repeated themes of the camera work, I think that if those continue, I will start to lose interest. And I can elaborate on more of why I feel that way and what I'm specifically talking about once we break into the spoiler section of the show.
Right, exactly, because this is the non-spoiler section of the show.
But overall, I liked it.
Yeah, I did too.
I mean, it was really good. It was interesting.
Yeah. FX has just been knocking it out of the park in the past couple of years. Like, I know I was reading an interview the other day with the FX president, who said that outside of like HBO, Showtime, Stars, all those subscription-based channels, this guy wants FX to be the best in terms of cable channel. And so far, they've been succeeding. I loved Sons of Anarchy. I know that's a little bit of a hit or miss show, but just in the past couple of years, the last season of American Horror Story I thought was great. I love Fargo. It's one of my favorite TV shows now. People vs. OJ shocked me in my core in terms of how great and gripping it was, especially for a real-life case that already happened. And just their past couple of years shows that they've done. Atlanta, I absolutely love.
Right.
Just they've been killing it in terms of original programming.
They've been picking up good content.
They really have. And this is just another example, because for me,
real quick, that show, The Strain.
I haven't not watched that episode.
Not
that show
on your
at
list
all.
of good
Not
shows
on
from
my
FX?
list at all. I'm sorry.
I just had to bring it up.
Yeah,
it's a funny concept.
it's understandable.
Type
But anyways,
show,
for Legion, for me, we've been getting a lot of an oversaturation, if you will, of superheroes on basically every medium you could possibly think of. We're getting like 6 movies a year now.
Yeah.
Netflix has got all their original series with Marvel.
Fox, CW.
Fox, the CW with all the DC superhero shows. ABC still has Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. going, although I have a feeling... don't worry, you and everybody else, because I have a feeling that show's not going to be longer. So I'm glad that FX is starting to step into it now, and I'm glad that it's Noah Hawley covering it, because this episode felt very subtle to me, while at the same time... Let me explain a little bit. So basically, I love this pilot episode. I really, really did. This is one of the better pilot episodes that I've seen, because the problem with most shows is that sometimes the pilot can be a little bit weak, and you have to wait like 2 or 3 episodes in before you get like super, super invested. I love this pilot. I was locked in from minute 1. I thought Dan Stevens did a fantastic job in the lead role. I never saw an episode of Downton Abbey, so I have no idea what this guy's acting talent, like what he was capable of. I thought it was really cool. I thought the way that they explored it from his point of view, like seeing how he thought he was crazy, but how from an outsider's perspective, he's like a mutant, because it's like, because I grew up with the X-Men film, so looking at it, I can understand how he is a mutant, but I can also understand that, like, that interior struggle, because the thing about a lot of mutants, and this has been covered in the comics, this has been covered in the movies, the thing about a lot of mutants is that a lot of them don't realize that they have powers. They legitimately think that something is wrong with them, and that can lead to a lot of interior conflict. Like, honestly, David getting locked up in the mental institution, it's one of the better case scenarios, because some mutants, a lot of them ended up dead at a very early age. So I thought that was really cool to explore that struggle. I also thought the supporting cast was 50-50 for me. The problem is that the supporting...
I'll agree with that.
Yeah, the pilot was mostly set up to explore him, and then the supporting players will get introduced later on. I thought Rachel Keller was pretty good as Sid, the girl who was in the mental asylum, and we'll get into
him and Sydney.
And we'll get into her powers later on. Jean Smart, she was only like a bit part at the end of this one as the part of Melanie, the one who's going to be taking him in and like kind of training him, like basically the Professor X of this series. Like, I don't know what her deal is,
at the end, with
but
the rest
she was
of
really interesting.
Which I appeared was the mutant team that he'll become a part of.
Pretty much, exactly. Like I want to know what her deal is.
If something. Just remind me to elaborate on that. If a certain so-and-so prediction is correct, then that's the team he will be a part of.
Right.
Because when we get to the spoilers, I'll explain on that too. This is a very hard show to talk about non-spoilers.
It is non-spoilers, but basically, because I want to get to the spoilers where we can explore the aspects 100%. Of the pilot. I really enjoyed the show. I got a very Inception-like feel to it, which is really cool. Like the way we were seeing his flashbacks, and like the way that the show was shot, like with that constant jumpy feel, it made you feel like you were inside of his head. I thought I did like the way
that the scenes restarted.
Yeah, the scene, the
and
way
you got a little bit more each time.
And I thought the action was beautifully shot. Like, I've seen a lot of special effects on shows recently, like between the CW and Netflix, and the problem is that sometimes in those shows, the low budgetness, because it is on TV and not movies, can really show with the powers. I thought this one, every time they did a power scene, it worked. I never once thought it looked fake, and I really enjoyed it. So overall, if we're just like rating the pilot, I give this pilot like an 8 out of 10, just from a pilot standpoint, not from like the overall season's review standpoint, because when it comes to like considering TV shows, the way that I rate it is that I rate a TV show based on how I'm doing after a season and a half. If after a season and a half I'm bored and I'm not invested, then I'm not going to care. But if I'm really locked in after a season and a half, then I'm good.
Well, we'll have to do, since we dedicated a whole episode of our podcast to the first.
We'll definitely have to do one on a full season breakdown.
Recap of the show. It's only 8 episodes. So
it's a nice short one too. So
from what I recall, there's no season breaks.
Nope.
It's just gonna go right through.
Exactly. FX doesn't play around with that. Those dumb season breaks. They usually just go straight through.
I feel like the mid-season breaks, Walking Dead does it well. But I feel like...
we can cover that in a different episode, because I have my own thoughts on just the way the Walking Dead formula works in general.
In my opinion, I think Walking Dead does it well. But the mid-season breaks usually always throw me out of the feel of the show. And make me lose interest.
Yeah, because the problem with the networks is that with the networks, they have their main season break for Christmas, where like they'll take like a month off, like usually in December or January, depending on where their fall season's at. And then when they pick up in the spring, they'll sometimes do it where they take like a week off, or like they take 2 weeks off just in the middle out of nowhere, and it completely throws me for a loop, and it takes so long for the season to finish because of the way the network schedules run, and it really bugs me. So I really like it when the cable channels and the subscription channels like your HBOs, your Showtimes just run straight through. I love that. So, can we officially call this the end of the non-spoiler segment?
So you're giving it a what out of 10?
I'm giving it an 8 out of 10, just from a pilot standpoint. And definitely one of the better pilots I've seen in a while.
I did like it as a pilot, and I know in the past I've given things like a super high rating if you guys have been paying attention. And this, I rate everything individually, and not to say that I didn't enjoy it, but I'm going to have to go ahead and give this a 6.5.
All right.
Out of 10.
All right.
Just because I feel like I need to see more to
Right,
fully
exactly,
formulate an
exactly.
opinion. I don't know if I'm a fan yet, but at least I'm on board.
Exactly.
That's the way I'll say it.
And I just feel like that's how pilots work, is that very few pilots can lock you in from day one. Like, there were a few pilots that did that for me, like Stranger Things, Westworld, Game of Thrones obviously did that for me. But yeah, very few pilots lock me in from day one. I usually have to wait until like the end of the first season, like midway through the second, to see if I'm really good. Like Silicon Valley, it took me a little bit to get on board just to realize like how great and on point that show was. And I've only seen the first episode of Veep, so I have to watch a little bit more to see how invested I get.
Right.
Atlanta, like I had to finish the season, like to look back on
To
how great
formulate
it
your
was.
opinion on it.
Exactly. Like it takes me a little bit.
Well, here's what I'll say, because you said Stranger Things. I wouldn't consider Netflix shows to really have a pilot because they pay for the whole show up front.
You're right, and the entire show gets
So I
dropped
wouldn't
online.
really. I don't
All
know
right,
if you
I'll
can
give you
say
that.
that Netflix shows have pilots because it's kind of the modern realm of TV where they make the first season is like a pilot.
You're right,
'Cause
and,
if it's
and
well
the way it's
received,
clustered
they'll make another
together,
one.
and the way it's clustered together, it
Right.
feels like a mini movie. Especially Stranger Things. Like
I was
Stranger
gonna say
Things,
that.
I would consider Stranger Things an 8-hour movie. With
I
some
would,
of their
I would
recent
say
shows,
so too, like a
it's
Kill
bit-
Bill
it's-
Volume 1 and Volume 2 part of the
Yeah.
deal.
All right.
Anyways, now that the spoiler-free section's out of the way, Dom, I would love for you to start us off with your spoiler.
Well, basically just our breakdown of the show, where this will
Yeah.
be the whole spoiler-heavy section of the show. So if you haven't seen the pilot yet, this is the section where you might want to tune out if you don't
come
like
back
spoilers,
and
then
finish
come
the
back.
episode.
Exactly. So
Dom, without further ado.
So basically, my breakdown of it is that, like I said, I find David Haller to be a very interesting character. I saw a couple of different things that said that he didn't give people a whole lot of things to be interested in, which I completely disagree with. I think the whole opening sequence that shows his, like, from when he was a little kid to where he is now, and just like the different things that he's gone through, the way that he's reacted to his mutation and how that's affected him in his life, like how he tried to hang himself, and how it turns out he wasn't actually hanging himself. It turns out he was actually using his telepathy without even realizing it, and where that's led him to where he is in the mental institution, and how that's going to propel him on his journey going forward. I thought that was really cool. Dan Stevens does a fantastic job. I'm so glad that this is my first introduction to him, because I had no idea this guy's acting talent. So rather than going into the show saying, oh, that's Dan Stevens, I know him, I know he's going to be great, it was a nice surprise to see just how great of an actor this guy is, and it makes me even more confident in the things that I'm going to be seeing him going forward, because he's actually, I don't know if you know this, he's actually playing the Beast in Beauty and the Beast, the live action remake.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's him.
That's wild. Okay,
Yeah,
I
that is
saw that
pretty
he
good.
had a credit in that movie. I wasn't sure of his role.
Yep, he's the Beast. Yeah, that was the
Okay.
thing. Going into Beauty and the Beast, I knew everybody in that movie except for him, and now I do because of this. Because I never saw a single episode of Downton Abbey, so I had no idea of this guy's acting ability. But he is absolutely incredible.
He's definitely a young actor, and this is definitely one of, I wouldn't say, because he has a lot of credits, but I'd say this is one of his first lead parts, correct?
I would say that, yes.
So this is like where we're seeing a young actor at the start of his career. And I thought at first his performance in the beginning of the episode was a little flat, but then towards the end of it, especially when he's being interrogated,
Yeah.
by, I don't know, the government
Yeah,
agent,
the government guy, pretty much.
and that whole scene where Sydney comes into his memory,
Yes.
that's when I start to feel the character come alive. So I think the only reason I felt that his performance at first was flat was because I fully didn't understand the character, but I do welcome him as the lead role, being the character that is Legion, and I actually am. He is one of the few things so far about the show that I'm super excited about.
Right, exactly.
To see develop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also, Sydney. She was a very mysterious character.
Yeah.
I liked her performance so far, but I definitely want to see more of her, and I hope she comes around more.
Right.
Because they did say that. Did she die? I forget.
Sydney didn't die. Sydney's
didn't
still
die.
good. Sydney didn't die. Lenny died, and we'll get into that.
Yeah, and I hope that we see more of her, of that character.
Oh
too.
no, we will. Don't worry. If this pilot establishes anything, we're going to be seeing more of Sydney and Lenny. So, in terms of talking about Sydney, Rachel Keller plays her, and I actually saw her in a previous. There are two actors in this that appeared in previous Noah Hawley productions. That would be Rachel Keller, who plays Sid, and Jean Smart, who plays Melanie, the teacher. They were both in Fargo season 2. I thought Rachel Keller was one of the weaker parts of Fargo season 2, but I thought in this one she really works for the character, the type of mysterious character going forward. Like, I didn't know what her role was going to be when she came into the pilot, if she was going to be a mutant or not, but the way she had that no touchy thing, and then once you saw what happened when you did touch her,
she's definitely a mutant.
she is a mutant. She's a body swapper, is what she is. And I thought that was really cool because that's something I haven't really seen before in the X-Men movies. It's always an idea that was played with around in the comics and the TV series. And I always thought, but the problem is that on TV, it was usually only used as like a one-episode gimmick if there was a superpower of anything, like a supernatural episode or like a superhero TV show of anything. If there was ever a body swapper of any kind, it was just a one-episode gimmick and then it was gone away. But I like to see that we're going to see this kind of a power and this kind of a personality explored as the series goes on. And I thought Rachel Keller did a really cool job embodying that. And
I also thought she was, with the no touching thing, I thought it was funny in a really dry way.
yeah, it was.
But I liked
worked.
it, you know?
It worked.
And then he tried to touch her on the bed, and it's like, you know better at that point.
Pretty
and
much,
she
exactly.
even avoided it then when it was their supposed last night together.
Right. The thing that they touched on, though, that I actually do really appreciate, and this is just the nerd in me coming out, is the fact of, with her, it was skin contact. Because notice when he touched her with the, when he touched her clothes, it was fine. It was when, because typically the thing with body swappers that works is when they have to make skin contact with somebody in order to swap.
And that explains why she didn't want no touching.
Exactly.
Makes
exactly.
sense.
So Rachel Keller did good, but for me, the scene stealer in this episode was Aubrey Plaza. I feel so bad for Aubrey Plaza because ever since her role on Parks and Rec ended, which she was fantastic in, she has just been doing terrible movie after terrible movie. She was in 2 god-awful movies this past year between Dirty Grandpa and Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates. 2 movies that I actively avoided, but 2 movies that I heard are 2 of the worst movies ever made. But
well, they both did well, though.
They both, not Dirty Grandpa. Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates did okay, but basically, I knew that this girl had talent because she did a couple movies while in her Parks and Rec run that were really good. But here, she just showed that she is absolutely, she knows what she's doing in terms of, like, she's one of the, David's fellow mental inmates, whose name is Lenny, and she is just all over the place crazy. Like, she's constantly bobbing to headphones. She, like, can't focus on things, and just, oh, man, she locked me in. She was interesting. It's just that what happens to her character kind of sucks because...
But here's the thing, though. You say she's one of her inmates, but I personally think that she's one of Legion's personalities.
You think so? Oh, and then we'll break this down in the theories, but so you think that the entire mental thing was all in his head?
No, I don't. I just think that certain characters in them... I don't know what to... Okay, so I'll dive into that right now.
Right, yeah, just dive into that right now because I want to break
I'm not 100% sure what to believe as far as what we got out of those scenes. Because
and that's where a little bit of the Inception vibe comes in, is that you don't know what's real and what's not. And I actually thought that was pretty cool. But, like, just to break it down, the way that his telepathy works and the reason why he thinks is that he's schizophrenic is that he hears voices in his head, but he's not to the point where, like, he just creates things out of nowhere. Like, because his thing is that he flashes back to previous memories. Like, those were just, when he was flashing back to before he was kidnapped by the government, those are just, like, cool, refreshing, intriguing new takes on flashbacks, but those aren't actually part of his powers. He's just a telepath / telekinetic. He can't, like, he's not like a regular schizophrenic, like, say, an Elliot from Mr. Robot, where he could just create new environments around him and pretend like he's in a completely different place. That's not how his powers work. So, like, when you say creating new personalities, like, I just saw that as an aspect of his telekinesis where, like, he's seeing Lenny after she dies as, like, a side effect of his telekinesis. Like, he's not, like, hallucinating. Like, he doesn't have multiple personality disorder. That's not how it works.
Well, from what I understand about learning about the character is that he has different personas that are sort of associated with his power.
You think so?
That's
You're sure you're not just confusing the body swapping thing?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
But for some reason, I feel like whatever it is, regardless of the exact extent of the power, because I don't think that for any comic book fans, because that's where I'm getting my knowledge from, I don't think they're going to fully derive this character from the character that we've seen in the comics, although he isn't the largest part of the X-Men. But I will say that I'm not too sure that Aubrey Plaza's character was an actual existing person.
You don't think she was ever there?
I feel like it was in his head. Whether it was another persona or just his mind playing tricks on him, being a sick mental patient, I don't think that certain characters we've met actually exist in the real world of the show.
Okay.
So I think that's why she came back when I believe he looked in the mirror and then he saw her in his sister's basement.
Yes.
And she was talking to him again. I think that it might just... If she keeps coming back, I have reason to believe she never truly
Which I have a feeling she will, because even though she did die in this first episode,
she's one of the stars of the show.
Basically, just to specify, so basically what happens to Lenny is, so the 3 main characters that we talked about so far, David, Sid, and Lenny, played by Dan Stevens, Rachel Keller, and Aubrey Plaza. So basically, Sid Barrett is revealed to be a body-swapping mutant, which is basically whenever she makes skin contact with somebody, their minds swap bodies. So basically, she has this thing when she gets to the mental asylum where she says, nobody can touch me. Nobody can make skin contact with me. Only David accidentally brushes her when she's leaving the mental asylum, so they end up swapping bodies. So David actually leaves the asylum in her body. The only problem is when she's trapped in David's body, she unleashes David's full telepathic capabilities. She ends up making all of the doors in the asylum disappear, and she accidentally smashes Lenny into one of them and kills her. So,
and real quick, looking up a brief bio of Legion off of the Marvel website, here's what it says. Legion takes the role of an anti-hero and has severe mental illness, including a form of dissociative identity disorder, formerly known as multiple personality disorder, in which each of his alternative personas controls one of his many superpowers.
Oh, really? So he does have multiple personality disorder.
So that's why, and why I believe that she's real, as in the sense that she's a part of his mutant genetic makeup, but she's not an actual real person that other people can interact with. I feel like that's a conversation inside of his head.
So you think this is going to be a sense of like a Fight Club or like a Mr. Robot in terms of he's actually seeing her and creating her and like becoming the personality when he talks with her, and like, but do you think it could be like a Fight Club or a Mr. Robot in terms of she will be able to take over his head and he will be Lenny? You know what I'm saying? Because like that's what happens in Fight Club.
I think that's what's going to happen.
Okay.
I'm not too sure, but I at least, and I also think that the yellow demon kind of guy, I think that's another one of his personas. That
squat troll thing. Yeah, I almost forgot about that, but yeah, I wanted to know what that thing was.
Yeah, we're definitely going to learn more about that.
Absolutely.
As the show goes on. But I also think that he is another one of his personas that might be one of the more evil, sadistic personas that kind of comes out when things are really going against the wall, and he's in a very tough situation. Now, I don't think Sydney is one of his personalities.
You think that she's real?
I think she's real, and this show has got me so confused as to believe what is real and what is not
real.
Right,
which is the purpose of the pilot, at least. But I have a feeling that by the end of this 8 episodes, some of that intrigue, some of that confusion will be alleviated, at least in some sense, because they got to leave some things open. Because if they want this thing to be another successful run for them, they got to keep it running open.
They need to leave people who have a small attention span or a low threshold to being patient with what we get shown, not told.
Exactly.
They need to give us some sort of thing to grip onto. Now, I'm going to watch this whole season since it's only 8 episodes.
Yeah, it's going to be a nice short run.
What I will say is that, and I'm reading a couple of reviews just preparing for this episode, because this character of Legion is such a handful to take in, especially only given the minimal information we were given in this first episode. I do think a lot of reviewers were saying that they think everyone we saw as a mental patient in the mental hospital was another one of his personas.
See, I don't agree with that, because we didn't get to know really anybody else in that asylum besides
either
David, Sid, or Lenny.
I don't either. And now, do I think there might be one or two? Maybe the guy with the dripping nose thing that was hanging down. Maybe. But I think that he actually was in that mental institution. But I 100% right now, and we'll find out at the end of the season if I was right or wrong, I think that, I keep forgetting her character's name, but I think Aubrey Plaza's character is one of his personas, as well as the demon with the yellow eyes.
Okay.
So we'll see where that goes from there.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see where that goes. But you're convinced that Sid, for at least, is real.
I think she's real, and I think that team at the end of the episode
was real.
All right, so I think what Sid did was, when he was in the pool and he was being interrogated by the government agent, I think she used her body swapping abilities or some sort of power that she has to invade his memory and sort of snap him out of the guy's ruse. You know?
Okay.
I don't really understand too much after that, but that's at least what I think right now.
Exactly. Well, that at least brings me to my next point, which is there are 2 other things we can at least learn, getting away from the character of Legion for a minute, about this world that we are in. Because, look, Simon Kinberg helped executive produce this TV series, and he's the executive producer of all the X-Men films.
Okay, and I was going to ask you,
he has definitely stated that this version of Legion is indeed Professor X's son. The only thing is he doesn't know exactly how this will tie to the X-Men universe. Or he hasn't gotten into that specifically, so I'm not going to alleviate on that too much. But we do know that in this world, at least, there is indeed, the government does know about mutants. We don't know how involved they are, if they're wholly against them, trying to round them up and exterminate them, the Nazis, or if they're really more so trying to investigate them and just learn more about them. And then there's Melanie's group, who seem to be, I'm not going to say the X-Men of the universe, but they're sort of the pro-mutants. So for right now, let's just assume from the pilot that Melanie's group is the pro-mutants and the government is anti-mutants. We don't know that. Those 2 roles could be completely reversed, or could they both be a little bit of both by the time these 8 episodes are over. But for now, let's just assume that that's the case.
Well, I think that, I'd say that's the general outline, but I think that there's members, at least in the government side, for example, the interrogator who was talking to
Hamish
Legion.
Linklater, that actor.
Yes, when he was talking to Legion in the room, and he went out to the old man, the
guy in the white coat.
And the white man said we should kill him, and he's like, I think we should give it more time. This is such an incredible specimen.
Right.
I think there are some people that appreciate it, but at the end of the day, I still think that the person who was interrogating Legion thought he was a threat.
Yeah, and that actually kind of paid homage to Days of Future Past that came out back in 2014, because I don't know if you remember this, but in Days of Future Past, when you saw the encounters between Stryker and Bolivar Trask, played by Peter Dinklage, the younger Stryker, we'd already gotten to know that Stryker hated mutants from day one and was even more disgusted when he found out that his own son was a mutant, versus and he wants them all gone, either used as weapons or completely dead. Whereas Trask's thing is that he was interested in mutants and he wanted to understand how they work, and he finds them quite fascinating, and he understood that they were the next step in human evolution. The only difference was he didn't have a whole lot of empathy for them in terms of he saw them as nothing but lab experiments that to be killed and torn apart, to see how they tech. So it's nice to see that conflict is still there in the side of the government, because it once again contributes to the whole idea of the gray characters are the most interesting in terms of not one side is all good and not one side is all bad. And I think we're going to get a lot of that.
You have a lot of room for growth in that formula. But one thing that I always like to talk about, just because ever since I really took a liking to film, before I did that, I didn't really ever give much credit to the people who come up with the set design, the people who come up with the costume design, the wardrobes. I thought that everything about this show was really cool. It felt very modern, but I thought the uniforms that they all wore in the mental health facility were with the yellow stripe up the sleeve.
It was a nice little homage to the original X-Men comics.
I noticed that.
I know a big complaint about those original X-Men movies is that why the dark leather, and I understand why, because it was in the early 2000s. It was still when the Matrix was huge and basically the thing, and Hot Topic was still coming up, so everybody did black leather. Everything in movies like X-Men was literally came out the year after the Matrix. So
but I liked it. It felt fitting to the universe that we've known.
Yes, exactly.
So that was cool, and I also think the logo, the little X and the O, you could have predicted that, but I'm glad they did that, because it just ties you into that this is an X-Men series. And on that note, the reason why I segued into it this way is because I hope that the people that she left with, or that he left with at the end, were kind of this maybe new team of X-Men mutants, and maybe somewhere along the line he becomes the leader of a team, which would be really cool, because I think he'd be a very interesting character to have to make tough decisions.
Exactly, because
and sort of carry the torch through a difficult whatever. We don't know who really I guess the government right now is the antagonist.
But we don't really know who the protagonists are. We only know him. That's the only thing that we know for sure from this pilot. And the thing that I like that is cool that this show is going to be doing that the movies really haven't done is there are so many different offshoots of X-Men. There's the New Mutants, there's X-Force, there's Young X-Men, there's X-Men 2099, there's the House of M.
Talking about comics?
The comics alone. There's
the
so
Uncanny
many
X-Men,
different oh my god, so many different versions.
No, that's really no.
Yeah, there's the Morlocks, the underground weird looking ones. There's there's just so many different brands of offshoot X-Men that we really haven't gotten to see at this point. I know that Deadpool's is trying to do that in the future, but for the most part, in terms of the movies, we've only gotten the primary X-Men, and it would be really cool to see this smaller, not really on the reservoir team that's led by Melanie going forward. See what members comprise them, what they do, what they exist for. What I'm really interested though to see what Melanie's like, because Jean Smart is a great actress. I thought she was another one of the weaker parts of Fargo season 2, but she really worked. And I understand what she said going into this role is that she didn't even read the character bio. She didn't even care that this was a superhero show. She didn't care about anything. As soon as Noah Hawley offered her a part, she accepted, because she knew that this guy meant business, because she loved working on Fargo season 2 that much. So if that it gives you some idea of Noah Hawley's credibility, this creator. That's why he was the biggest reason why I jumped on the show. Not because this was a superhero show, because I've gotten plenty of those. Not because this is a Fox show, that would have certainly deterred. Not the star power, because the only stars that I knew from it were the Fargo season 2 stars and Aubrey Plaza. I had no idea who this guy Dan Stevens was. The appealing factor for me was Noah Hawley, because I love Fargo, the TV series, so much. So when I saw he's doing a superhero show, sign me up.
I also can appreciate, for example, J.J. Abrams' production company, Bad Robot. Mm-hmm. You notice a lot of the same actors circulating in and out of different series. And I can appreciate when, you know when there's good chemistry.
Exactly.
So that's another thing that has me hopeful about this show.
Yes,
because
exactly.
I didn't know what you just said, but I understand why they want to work together again, because they made a really special product the first time around.
Exactly.
And they only have gotten more tight of a unit since, so.
Pretty much. Yeah, so I'm really excited to see how that is going forward. I want to know. We didn't get enough of Jean Smart in this episode to really know what she's about. Melanie, she's basically like a bit part at the end when Sid and the other two characters are rescuing David from the government interrogation. We're obviously going to see more of her going forward.
Really cool action sequence.
Really cool action sequence.
Where they're blasting people left and right with their powers.
I know the CGI.
That's the team. I hope that those people develop into a team.
Me too.
Because that'd be really led by the older woman at the end.
I know that people had a lot of problem with the way the green screen and the CGI work when like the telekinetic guy was throwing people away, but I thought it was really cool to just come out of nowhere and like the way that the action just moves so quickly. It worked for me.
If people had a problem with it, understand this isn't a feature film.
Exactly. This is a TV series. They've got a set budget that they have to work with. So
and a pilot hasn't even their budget won't increase until we know how this season does.
Exactly. So if your problem with this is the special effects, then honestly,
understand that.
Then honestly, like watch that.
What we got was awesome.
Watch that first season of Supergirl, and then come back and tell me that these effects look like crap.
I thought what we got was great. Now I want to get into something that I brought up in the beginning of this show, which was the sort of camera motifs, because I don't want people to leave without hearing my thoughts on that.
Yes, exactly. So go more in depth with that.
I like the sequences, but I kind of felt like every 15 minutes it fell into a pattern where it would start off, he would have a memory. Then he would snap back out of it. Then he'd go back, get 2-3 more steps further into it. Then he'd snap out of it. Then he'd get 2-3 more steps into it. Then he'd snap out of it. And while that was suspenseful, I just felt like that was something they kept playing on to build like they sort of were fabricating a suspense instead of the writing naturally taking it there. Whereas if they didn't do that, I felt like the moment would have hit the same. And I get for the pilot, you want to keep people on your toes, and it really did make me, I guess, sort of like anxious to see what would happen next. But then there was also a while where I was like, just get to the point. I felt like even with that baby scene in the beginning, showing him like growing up with the show Don't Tell, sort of playing the stills of like all the kid actors progressing through, I even thought they harped on that too long. There's just like similar camera motif where everything with the shots would fade in very slowly and the movement would be on top of one another, which is cool every once in a while. But in my opinion, I guess I'm more of a minimalist, and it just felt like a little too much overproduction with the simple camera tricks. Now, I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, I have two responses to that, but continue, and I want to hear your full point before I respond.
Well, I mean, to wrap up, I would say that I appreciate that because I know how hard it is to create that, but I think that there was a few moments where that was very tasteful, but I also felt like they overdid it just because they could. And they had a couple scenes that worked with it. Now, Dom, what do you think about that?
Well, the two responses that I have to that, in terms of like the way that the camera angles fade in and out, is one thing. The reason why it could feel a little bit long is because yes, they do have to extend for time because they have an hour slot, and FX doesn't have as many commercials, so they don't need to write in and out of commercial breaks. So basically everything that they can do verbatim. And now what Noah Hawley does, which is unlike what a lot of other TV producers does, is that a lot of TV producers will write a script for a certain amount of time, and then they'll have to cut out certain parts for commercials breaks, right? I've noticed that with their last couple shows, FX hasn't been doing as many commercial breaks. So when he writes like a 90-minute script for one episode, they usually use all 90 minutes. So that's why some of that can feel like a little
Which I respect.
Well, I do respect that as well, because that's something that like you can't get away with on network TV, because you need those commercials because they got to get their money from somewhere. Now, but the other response that I have to that statement, though, is the fact of the way that it cuts back and forth between. That's a simple formula that a lot of action movies do, you'll notice, is that it can't be all action all the time. It needs to give you a brief respite, like in Die Hard, when John, like the first solid 30 minutes are action, and then they bring in Reginald Van Johnson, and you have the back and forth between him and Bruce Willis in between when he's killing German terrorists. It's supposed to give you a little bit of breath of fresh air and a little bit of a leeway, rather than just having it be straight action all the time, because the problem with a lot of viewers is that they may not be able to sustain their viewing pleasure throughout the entire time, and occasionally they need a brief little distraction in order to wake them up and just be like, oh, but this is happening along the side. Because the problem is that a lot of people have short attention spans, so you need to keep introducing beats in order to keep them interested. It's just basic storytelling.
Right, but I think the reason why they did it so much wasn't for the whole stretch out the action scene. I think, like you just said, I think the reason they did it was to show that he was sick and that he had to keep retracing his steps, and it was hard for him to fight through that. But I think halfway through the show, we understood that he was very sick. He was a schizophrenic, and he was suffering from mental illness. I think that they did that more so to establish the character, but I felt like they already had established it. I just felt like they were saying, look, like I said, I really enjoyed this pilot, but I just felt like they kept saying the same things in different ways, and that we didn't need that. Maybe we could have gotten a little more of the plot moving along. But to another camera point, I felt like a lot of it was very tight close-up shots, which was cool. But then I felt like there were some shots, like the action scenes, where it was very close up on either Sydney's face or Legion's face, and I wanted to see a little bit more of the set in the background, especially with all the red and blue lights when the there was no walls on the in the mental institution.
Right.
That whole weird sequence, I felt like it was just very tight. And like, yes, you need to see the characters, but I would have liked a little bit more of like the chaos in the background, just to immerse me more. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Well, the thing about it is that I know that you're a very background-oriented person, because you find that, because at least from what I've learned about it, is that sets and like the background noise really invests you more in the type of world that this is. But for me, I'm always more of a character guy in terms of if a character or a set of characters are intriguing to me enough, that's usually all I need to get me going. And then I usually think about the world and all the background stuff as secondary. So the background stuff really didn't bug me as much. I was really just able to get invested in this character, get really interested in what he's going through, both mentally and emotionally, like trying to figure out who he is and what he is, trying to distinguish reality from his mind, especially because I've seen it that angle played out so many different times. Literally the entire last season of Mr. Robot was played out specifically of being unable to distinguish what's going on in your head from reality. So the fact that the pilot was able to accomplish all that in one episode, what Mr. Robot dragged out to 12 episodes, which is why the last season was, in my opinion, so weak, I thought it was really cool. And like I said, I'm a massive superhero fan. I'm a massive X-Men fan. And so to see the X-Men joining the massive legions of other TV shows that are on TV, and to have this stand out and to potentially be one of the best, I love it. It's super cool.
Right. So it seems like we're kind of just tomato thing here. It's like
a
you
little
like
bit,
one
and I
thing,
have a
I
feeling
like
that
another,
as the episodes go on and we learn more about both the character of Legion and the world that he is enveloped, I feel like we'll be able to formulate more of an opinion. Because like I said, you can't really formulate an opinion of a show. My opinion is season and a half. That's my opinion. So like however
Fair
long
enough.
that first season is, whether it be 8, 10, 12, or 13 is the usual running length.
Well, we're getting 8.
We're getting 8. Usually,
in this case,
the only time that I find that you can really form a full opinion of a show after just one season is on a typical network show, which usually does like a full 23, 24 episode
like
run.
a CW.
Yeah, but I've already said that format is starting to become a little bit played out, because
really, you can invest more money into a shorter season.
Exactly.
And,
you can make your storytelling more tight knit. You don't have to draw so much out that you have to fill in with these bland, pointless filler episodes.
Right, no
and that's
filler.
honestly what pisses me off about The Walking Dead, is why does Walking Dead have to follow that cable formula when it's already showed in the past that it can be its own network thing with Breaking Bad and Mad Men, which really were such revolutionary shows for the time. It's almost like they're taking 3 steps backwards while every other TV station is moving forward. Even the cable stations are finding ways to stay relevant.
They
with
might
their
just be milking the
run.
good thing.
They obviously are, but honestly, it's not working for them because their ratings are the lowest they've been in a while. So,
yeah, interesting. Well, what I would say, for me, and I don't know if I feel like we can conclude this now.
Yeah, we can pretty much conclude this. I feel like we've said everything we need to say, but I'm really happy with this pilot. Like I said, one of the best pilots I've seen in a while. I'm definitely going to watch this show going forward. FX, keep doing what you're doing because it is absolutely working. I thought Ryan Murphy had done his run after American Horror Story Hotel, and then he managed to completely flip the switch on me with this last year alone. I'm so looking forward to their new anthology, because they're actually doing... So Legion's not going to be an anthology series like American Horror Story and Fargo, but FX is killing it with the anthology series. You know, the idea of each season is a new TV series. Well, because they're doing People vs. OJ, a sequel to People vs. OJ in 2018. It's going to focus on Hurricane Katrina, and that got renewed for 2 more seasons. And now they're doing another anthology series that's going to start in March called Feud. And Feud is going to focus on different feuds in history, but this first season, which is going to be another 8-episode run, is going to focus on the legendary feud that happened between 50s Hollywood actresses Betty Davis and Joan Crawford on the set of the horror movie Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and it's going to be a 50s period piece that takes place in Hollywood. I am so looking forward to that. The production design looks beautiful. They've got a killer cast. They've got Jessica Lange and Susan Sarandon playing the 2 leads. With the supporting cast, they've got Sarah Paulson back, Alfred Molina, Stanley Tucci, Catherine Zeta-Jones. It looks great. So,
well, maybe we'll have to do an first episode and thoughts on that show as well.
Absolutely. And if you want, because the People vs. OJ is also on Netflix now, and that's only a quick 10-episode run. So if you want to run through that and then maybe do an episode on that later on, that would be a pretty great episode.
If anyone's listening and they like what we're doing, let us know. I'll watch it if you guys want.
Yeah,
we can
absolutely.
Talk about it. Let us know if you like that.
Yeah, hit him
now,
up.
Just to bring it back to Legion though, real quick, because I wanted to conclude my final thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the way I spoke, I don't know. I don't want people to think I didn't like this. I really like this show, and I'm.
But you have your opinion, and you want to break down things that you like and things that you don't like, as does anyone.
And I did enjoy the cinematography. I guess that this directing style is a little different than what I'm used to, so I'm hoping that this will win me over in a way that shows like Stranger Things have. And so we'll see where that goes. But as of now, like I said, I'm on board. I think that this is a young cast, but a really talented cast. I'm excited to see where they take this show. I hope that the dream sequences they can stay, but I hope they sort of fade away and we get more.
Yeah, I can understand
content.
because sometimes dream sequences can really start to bug me. Like
I just want to know that we're investing in something that isn't just where he's gonna wake up and we're gonna. At the end of season 8, he's in the same hospital bed that he was in the whole time.
Oh, that's gonna piss me off so much. If they pull
but I would respect that because then they really pulled the rug from out.
Seriously, like pull a rug out from us. Like if they were to do that, I feel like that would like beat out Lost, Sopranos, and all the other
Lost
series
is what I was thinking about
finales
when I said
for
that.
like wasting another 10 just doing an awful series finale. So.
But yeah, like I said, I'm on board. I'm excited to see where this show goes, and it's a quick 8 episodes. So if you really got nothing else to do on a Wednesday night, check it out.
Exactly. It's right on FX, 10 o'clock on Wednesdays. The new episode will be episode 2 will be on tomorrow. And,
tonight at the time of this recording.
Yeah, tonight at the time of this recording,
but,
exactly.
Yeah, expect, at least for the next few weeks, episodes to come out Wednesday. We're both busy students and workers and family members and friends.
College students.
And all sorts of things.
Stuff.
So just bear with us, but we're going to keep these coming best we can. We have a bunch of good material lined up, which we'll keep a secret for now, but we'll get that out to you as the weeks go. And Dom, where can they find you?
All right, you can find me on Twitter at Movie Nerd Review, as well as on my awesome website, movienerdreviews.com, where I try to post as much as I can about the news, as well as my own personal reviews, trailer reactions, stuff like that. You can also find me right here on the Movie Nerd Podcast, located, of course, on this YouTube channel, Movie Nerd Reviews. Make sure you guys continue to be awesome fans by clicking that subscribe button as well as the like button on this video. Also, leave some comments. Just let us know what you want us to do going forward, if we should do anything else, because right now we've kind of been sticking exclusively to movies. This is really our first foray into television, so just leave some more suggestions down there for anything else we could do. Like if you want us to cover a topic of an episode where we cover some of our favorite movies, some movies that have maybe influenced us like in our youth. Like I feel like just leave some suggestions. Chris, where can they find you at?
They can find me anywhere that is currently trending. At Christian Ivanko, that be Instagram, that be Twitter, that be Facebook. I have a YouTube channel, which is also conveniently just titled Christian Ivanko, where I will also be uploading these episodes. I have a video coming out this Friday, which is, I just did a tour this past winter with my band, and we covered Rocky Like a Hurricane, so you can check us playing a little bit of a classic rock cover in a small little punk venue in North Carolina, and then the week after that, I'll have a Free Falling acoustic cover coming out, as well as another episode of this podcast. So I'm going to be a little more active on my YouTube channel, point being. And thank you guys for being here with us, because so far these shows have been well received, considering we haven't really promoted it as much as we should have. But
exactly.
We will now.
No, we absolutely will. I'm definitely going to, after this is done, open up my own Facebook page. So be sure to...
Can I at least tell them what to expect for next week?
Absolutely. Tell them what to expect for next week.
Stranger Things.
In preparation for season 2. I'm Dom, that's Chris. This has been the Movie Nerd Podcast, and we will be sure to see you guys next time.